where you are right now. They want that one seat that you have. So, what would be your suggestion to them? So Raghav, do you remember what did you base your entire essay on? Maybe the first topic we can consider.
Yeah, I mean, like, from what I hear, I think it's already gonna be on the thumbnails. They're just Transformers.
Transformers.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Because I was 30 minutes late to my interview. I had
Okay.
read the time label as 2:30 instead of 2. So, if you actually know what you're talking about, you will not need to pretend to sound smart. You'll already sound smart because you already know about it.
Joining us today on our podcast is Raghav Agarwal, a second year student at Ashoka University, pursuing the very famous PPE, Political Science, Philosophy and Economics degree. He has been an accomplished debater in his life and has actively participated and won awards at national level, Model United Nations. But that's certainly not it. Since joining Ashoka, he has made sure to only level up. He now stands as the head of a department for our very active Orators Club and a successful news writer for Edict, an independent newspaper. We welcome you, Raghav. Hi, Raghav. Thank
Hi.
you so much for joining us today.
No, it's a pleasure for me to be here.
And welcome to our podcast. We are so glad to have you here at Guidex,
Thank
a
you.
place where guidance meets experience. So, how are you feeling right now?
I'm actually pretty anxious right now since like my grades are about to come out, but like I'm all up for the podcast at the moment.
I think that preps us for the next question. How's Ashoka been treating you?
I mean, to answer that question, like I'll provide some context. So I come from a boarding school. I've spent like 7 years of my life there, and so have you. Now the thing is, in terms of purely experience in life, it's like my life has been flipped upside down because that school being a boarding school and it had a very strict schedule. So
Definitely.
somewhere or the other, it was very predictable. And conversely, Ashoka, a very liberal arts university, so there is a strong lack of predictability. You never know for sure as to what's going to happen or what you're supposed to be doing. There's always a huge spectrum or a huge ambiguity as to like, should I be doing this, should I be doing that? So I've taken some time to getting adjusted to that, but otherwise I think I'm doing my best and I'm just trying to be happy with that.
I think that's what matters the most. Acha, now so you're here and you're doing really well. But I want to know more about when you were in 12th.
Okay.
Why Ashoka? Like, what made it stand out for you?
Okay, right. So the first thing that actually like led me to gravitate towards Ashoka was one of my history teachers.
Right.
So she used to speak greatly of the college and basically about the academic rigor that Ashoka University had. And when I spoke to her about it, she just kind of sold me on it. And me being me and me just being uh, like very loyal to her as a student, kind of took in all of that advice as like particularly friendly advice and true advice. And when I looked it up myself, I just thought, oh, this looks pretty perfect. And I speak to my brother a lot. I have a cousin, elder brother, who is kind of my mentor to my life. And he told me himself that like once you get into Ashoka, you need to stop worrying about private universities.
Right.
Then your only thing left to do for college applications will be government universities. So I was like, okay, I'll put my foot down and I'll like do everything I can to get into Ashoka.
Right. So, was it your first choice, Ashoka?
I mean, like, in terms of private universities, yes.
Right. Definitely. Adding on to that question, Raghav, it's been 2 long years of you in Ashoka now. So, what is one thing that you think Ashoka offers which maybe other colleges don't?
Okay, correction, it's been 1.5 years.
Okay.
Yeah, and okay, so the very basic thing that Ashoka offers is that let's say you get into a deal, they'll offer you a strict curriculum that each semester these are the 4 courses you need to take, these are the 4 courses you need to take the next semester. It's very predictable and it's very, very set forward for you that it won't be changed. It's very, very locked in. And you just need to trace the path that's already been traced for you. But in Ashoka, you need to kind of make your own path. That's why a student needs to like invest a lot of time into deciding which courses they want to take, into like just prepping for a lot of different things. because it's not only that you get to decide what you want to do in the beginning of the semester, but you also get to decide in the middle of the semester and the starting of the semester. There is an entire concept of something called a shopping week, which is like the first week of the semester. You kind of interact with all your classes. You go to your classes, and all of the classes, most of them actually, they don't have attendance for the week because even the faculty knows that students are just here trying out stuff. So after that particular thing, then people drop courses, people add courses, there are waiting lists. So once you get through all of that jazz, you kind of settle on a course. And still in the middle of it, there are a lot more options, there are a lot more features that you can use to kind of further align your course trajectory to your mental trajectory.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that a lot. And actually, that links us very well to the next question that I was about to ask you. Like you said, and like we hear a lot, everyone talks about Ashoka's interdisciplinary learning, right?
Right.
So, did you have a oh my god, this is so cool, and this is exactly what I wanted moment?
Yeah, I definitely had that. Like, I can point you to a very specific moment. So when I came in, and even as a part of my applications, I put my major down as political science. But like, in my back end, I always had like a curiosity for philosophy and economics. Philosophy, like if you are my friend, you'll know. And in my first semester, I was very much bent on pursuing political science. But in my second semester, I was speaking to more people. I just looked at the sheer number of options there are and certain foundational courses that I took, that it's worth taking the risk. So the thing is, I had not done 11, 12 maths. And I need to take a very elaborate trajectory after studying 11, 12 maths, taking a calculus eligibility test, appearing through a calculus course, and then getting an A minus to further pursue my major. So there is not a lot of colleges that will let you do that. And I don't think I've found one apart from this college, which really sounds like I'm trying to sell you on it, but I'm not. So yeah, so that was that very particular moment. I was like, wow, like despite my past mistakes, I can still correct them by compensating with effort.
So Raghav, आपका अब अशोका आने का प्लान तो सक्सेसफुल हो गया and you're doing great. But today most of our audiences who will be watching this are at that spot where they want to be where you are right now. They want that one seat that you have. So what would be your suggestion to them? Like, what do you think you did right in your process?
Okay, so in retrospect, what I think is that I actually pushed a lot for like extracurricular activities. Now, whether it was to like specifically get into a good college or not is beside the point. But like I remember participating in a lot of debates, participating in a lot of MEN competitions, and just a lot of activities in general. But like I never did it with the intention of getting into a good college. It's just that all of those added up to like just strengthening and bolstering my CV or resume or whatever you call it these days, and which kind of I think made me a stronger candidate.
Right.
Yeah.
That totally makes sense. And as you mentioned, Raghav, and even in the introduction, that you had been involved in a lot of debates and MUNs. So that brings me to two questions for you.
Okay.
First, how do you feel that these experiences, not just for the resume, but as experiences, gave you an edge for the entire process? Because Ashoka has a vast application process, right? And maybe some skill it taught you or something that looked good or was good on your application.
Right. So like in terms of proper skills or like takeaways from the experiences of it and not the documentation, one thing is like just answering questions, because both debates and MUNs, they kind of like what's the right word, demand a lot of question answering skills. So like whether it's you being asked a question right out of your speech in a debate or like just a point of information in MUNs, so you kind of need to understand the content while process and answer and deliver it in a package that is understandable. And the fact that you need to do it in an instant, it kind of is a very demanding skill. And I used to struggle with it a lot. But like through time, I think like I've worked my way up, and I can actually now confidently speak in a way that it's understandable and kind of answers a question. I actually hope I'm doing that right now.
Yeah, you definitely are.
So like that is number one. That is the question answer skill. And just apart from that is just understanding content and just delivering content. So like this is something that gets taught to us in Ashoka a lot. Is that the best way to deliver content in any form, be it writing or any other form of content delivery, is to take the simplest route possible, because that's just the greatest form of engagement.
Right. The second thing I wanted to ask you from this is that unlike you, there are a lot of students who do not have the experiences of such activities, maybe MUNs or debates, right? And these people end up feeling rather unconfident in themselves, underconfident in themselves. I'm so sorry. So, do you think having such experiences in your CV is like a deal breaker, or do you think it's more of like an add-on to your personality, to the other qualities that you have?
I mean, like that's a very good question, because again, Ashoka, something what Ashoka is known for is diversity. So like maybe I am a certain kind of student that Ashoka inducted, but Ashoka has a wide variety of students. So let's say you might not be a potent debate or MUN person, but you might be a music person, you might be a performing arts person, or any other equivalent. So just your interest and just your passion for the same, I think, will be very much enough. Because like again, there you can always find somebody who is better than you at a particular thing. If let's say person X is best at playing a certain game, there will always be a person Z who will sometime be better. But something that you can be the best at forever is just being yourself. So like that's something that I very much believe in, and just being confident in who you are, it kind of helps a lot.
Right, I 100% relate with your answer because I have a wide range of variety in my friends. One is like a professional dancer, the other one is really passionate about writing. I feel like the only thing that counts is you should be passionate about something. It can be anything, it doesn't have to be an MUNs or debates. It can be anything that you're passionate about. And it can be something as thing as baking as well. You can be very passionate about baking, and you should have that thing inside yourself.
Definitely.
This reminds me to like rewind back to your application process.
Okay.
So, did you have a solid game plan, not just for Ashoka but for the other universities you applied to as well? And what would be that one or two strategies that you swore by that you would definitely use them?
Okay. So one thing that like I had in the back of my mind when I was writing my essay is that my essay is just something like it's an instrument to kind of demonstrate my thinking process. What I mean by that is I have to just think out loud in a concise way on the paper that this is what I'm thinking, but I'm also needing to say why I'm thinking what I'm thinking.
Right.
So because I very much believe that colleges through your essay kind of want to gauge on your thinking process, and just like the train of thought you take or just a mechanism of thought. I'm not sure I'm trained in the vocabulary of applications, but like I hope that conveys the message.
Right, Raghav. So you touched upon essays a little bit, so we could go that way. The key highlight of essays, as we more often than not hear, is showing the person that you are beyond your grades, beyond the titles, like genuinely the person that you are, having a personal touch. So for the audience here, Raghav, if you remember, can you reiterate your essay topic?
Right. So the first topic I had was like if you could have two fictional characters that could be your friends, who would you pick? That was the first essay topic. And the second one was if there was a conversation that would have to extend late into the night, what would the topic be about?
I'm really impressed by your memory.
Yeah.
Considering it was 1.5 years ago.
Yeah.
So Raghav, do you remember what did you base your entire essay on? Maybe the first topic we can consider.
Yeah, I mean like from what I hear, I think it's already gonna be on the thumbnails. They're just transformers.
Now I'm completely invested in this, Raghav. So where did this inspiration come from to write an essay on transformers?
Okay, so like just to clarify, so like both of the topics are different essays, and I use transformers in both of them. So like the first topic itself demanded of a fictional character, so that kind of made it very easy to integrate that. And the second topic, I just thought like I'm in the zone, I really love Transformers. That's something I'm genuinely passionate about. So why not write about it?
Okay.
So yeah, that was my thinking process.
That's great actually. I'm really invested. But more importantly, I have another question for you. How did you convince yourself that it is completely okay, completely fine to base your essay, which now we know that mattered so much for you, around Transformers? Like, it takes something for you to choose that.
Okay, the number one thing I would say is faith. So like I actually wrote that in my essay as well, that in the past 13 years that I have 14 years actually now that I've been invested in Transformers, I've met a gazillion people who have tried to put my interest down, who has tried to like belittle Transformers, like it's just a kid's thing, it's whatever. But like it's that faith, it's that burning faith that I have in the franchise or whatever it gives me, that kind of like bolstered my confidence. Like you're passionate about this, it makes sense, you can write about it. So everything kind of added up, and I was like, yeah, this like feels right. So instinct as well.
That is amazing. So, do you think having that really personal touch in your essay gave you an edge over the other essays? Maybe?
I mean, I don't think that's somewhere I can comment because I'm not from the other end of the admissions process. But like I very much like focused on the basics. I remember showing that essay to like a couple of my teachers, and they were like, "Yeah, that's very much fine."
Okay, that's really good. I really do not feel like moving on from this topic, but we have to do what we have to do, I guess. So Raghav, if you could go back to the school to college transition phase, maybe say grade 11th and 12th, uh, what would you do differently? Like maybe in the application process or in choosing the right college for yourself. So, what do you think are those few things you would do differently?
Right. So I'll speak more specific to Ashoka. But like when I was starting out my applications, I remember I got through the logistical part of it pretty quickly. The stumbling part for me was uh, the essay. Now the thing is, I had less than 24 hours to complete it, start to end. So I just wrote a draft, I got it reviewed, I made some modifications into it, and I remember it was not a very like draft upon draft upon draft. It was like a second or a second 2.5 draft, which I submitted. So like this is something that I definitely did wrong, because now that I read back, it's not a good essay. But like I understand, I was pretty proud of it when I wrote it. So yeah, that. So like again, I feel like for writing, it's more about refining than writing only. So like you write it, you refine it, you refine it, you refine it, and at some point you will reach that satisfaction. Like okay, this is a representation of what I want to convey, and that's when you know it's done.
Yeah, that really does make sense. Um, so Raghav, a lot of incoming students, a lot of people who aspire to be in Ashoka or any other college have this feeling that they're trying too hard. Maybe for the interview or for the essay. So how do you think a person can showcase their talent, their unique potential, without going through this feeling of trying too hard? And do you think there's a place where they should draw a line? What's the line? Where's the line between this is alright and this is not?
Right. So to kind of break down your question, like just the trying too hard bit, I think that sentiment comes about when you start considering that, or like assuming that you have responsibility or some sort of power over things that you actually don't have power over. So like that trying too hard feeling, that feeling of incompetency comes out of just nervousness, if I'm gonna get in, if what's gonna happen, all that worry. So I think where you can definitely draw the line is that you do all the basics, you do everything that you are responsible for in a rather satisfying way, or just put your best foot forward with your best efforts, and you draw the line where basically the things you have control over, like they kind of stop. So the moment you click that submit button is the moment you stop having any control over your application. So like that's where you draw the line, because again you think about it, the same thing's gonna happen. You don't think about it, the same thing's gonna happen.
Right. अब अगर हम इंटरव्यूज पर फोकस कर ही रहे हैं तो वी नो दैट अशोका इंटरव्यूज आर नोन फॉर बीइंग वेरी conversational and quite challenging actually. So first of all, how did your interview go? And what okay? And what advice would you give to someone whose interview is like coming up?
Okay, so like the reason why I laughed is because I don't recall my interview going very well because I was 30 minutes late to my interview. I had
Okay.
read the time label as 2:30 instead of 2. So don't do that, like that's the first thing.
Yeah.
Uh,
Definitely don't do that.
yeah. And I remember it being very conversational, yes. So it started from my introduction, it got over to my uh, potential major, and then we touched upon a bunch of things. So the number one thing that I remember being like using very often is like just belief. So just say out loud what you actually believe in, and just say out confidently like who you are and what you have been doing. Because again, this is something that my brother told me, the mentor brother, that you will always be the best at being yourself. And if you actually put belief and confidence in it, that will be enough.
Right, right. You must have been really good at your interview, Raghav, considering you were 30 minutes late for it.
I mean, sure.
We all know how important body language is, right, for
Right.
interviews. But we also know that Ashoka interviews happen virtually. So, do you have some tips for people, for the students who will be giving Ashoka interviews in the near future? Because online it's also difficult to read the body language of people. So, how do you think a person can showcase that they're confident through a virtual call?
Okay, so that I think it's very controllable, it's very logistical. So again, the age-old saying that first impression is the last impression, and that's kind of psychologically validated because there is something called the anchoring mechanism. So basically, your first impression of the subject kind of dominates over the other feelings that you might gain over it. So for a strong positive first impression, I would say have a camera that's clear, like scramble for it, manage it, and sit in a place where it's brightly lit. So again, with a strong high definition camera quality, it kind of conveys some sort of confidence or some sort of organization. So that's something that I did.
Right.
So I had a laptop. I borrowed my friend's laptop. It had a good camera, and I remember sitting in a brightly lit white room, which kind of again conveyed a more clean and calm look.
Right.
And one very important thing is that like model the camera in such a way that your hands are visible, because when you're talking, hands kind of hook you on. Like it just increases the engagement level of the conversation to a whole another level.
I think a part of your essay, a part of your answer also reminds me of something that Ashoka interviews, almost all interviews start with your introduction or
Right.
tell me more about yourself. But I feel like this is the catch, and how you answer that question is also really important.
Right.
Because I remember answering that question for me, and I remember mentioning how much I'm interested in psychology, how I'm really passionate about it, and the rest of my interview followed with the base of what I answered in my first question.
Right.
So
Definitely.
you really need to be passionate about, and you really need to be confident in what you're saying in your first answer, because the rest of the interview kind of follows on after that.
Right. So I very much agree to what you're saying. So like everything that comes out of your mouth, it's
Yeah.
kind of content for the
Yeah.
interviewer
Correct.
to kind of scrutinize and like pick out like why did you say that? Why did you say that in that particular way?
100%, because they do not have a script ready of like 10 questions exactly what they want to ask you. They
So
go
you need
on-
to be very aware of what you're
Exactly.
saying.
For sure. Great, Raghav, but I definitely think that there is a lot more to unravel about your interview, specifically you being late. So you should check out his interview video, the full video, which will be pinned down below in the comment section. Raghav, this would be my last question for you.
Okay.
There has been a lot of buzz about storytelling, be it for essays, interviews, even life in general, right? It's like that one magical word that solves all problems. Everyone suggests you do storytelling,
Okay.
even in your essay, for everything. But a lot of students who are not writers, probably, suffer with this. So they struggle to use this effectively. Either they think they're overdoing it or they're not doing it enough. So how can you how would you advise someone to use it effectively or in a way that they stand out?
Okay, so like again, you will stand out if you do it really well. And now, getting to the really well part, like just keep it simple. So again, like if you find yourself using big words or any sort of jargon, just try to not use it because again, it reduces the engagement, it creates friction for the reader, and that's the last thing you want to do. So just let me just illustrate what will happen. So they're reading through your script and then they'll stumble upon a word they don't understand or they think are out of place, which kind of breaks the flow of them reading, which means they have to go back and read from the start, which kind of again creates more friction for the reader and creates more frustration for the reader, thereby implying a negative connotation towards whatever you're doing. So again, the number one thing that you need to consider is make your reader's life easy. Then that's being achieved by keeping it simple, doing what you do best is that conveying what you're actually passionate about. Because if you actually know what you're talking about, you will not need to pretend to sound smart. You'll already sound smart because you already know about it.
Yeah,
So
that makes sense a lot actually. Yeah. I think clarity is also
Yeah.
really important. It's more important to be clear with what you're saying than try to show that you have good English or good vocabulary.
Yeah, that's actually very, very important. Like a part of what you're doing is content, and a part of what you're doing is communication and clarity. So like even if your content is like a 5 out of 10, and if your communication is like a 9 out of 10, that's a deadly combo. And if your content is like a 9 out of 10, but your communication is like a 2 out of 10, that is not so good because you're not delivering that content in a good way.
Yeah, another thing that I would add to this is maybe a lot of people feel this need to go through other people's stories and look up the internet. That's definitely something you can do, but you need to find your own way of storytelling and your
Right.
own way of writing. And I think being specific also helps a lot in a lot of cases. If there's a simple thing you want to show to the reader that you like to read, either you can start with something like ever since I was a child I loved reading. That's great, but then again there's nothing specific about that. And then you can start with something like I remember when I was so in love with the first book of Harry Potter that I used to
Right.
take it in my maths class and so so on, right? So there's also something about being specific in your storytelling that also grabs the attention of the reader quite a lot.
Definitely. Like because the simple mechanism of you being specific about something, that means it's important. And just the fact that you're mentioning
Exactly.
it means that it's worth mentioning.
Exactly.
And like if you need a way to like kind of measure your effectiveness of storytelling, I think the easiest way to do it is just hand it to someone who doesn't know anything about what you're writing and just like make them read through it and see how much they can understand without asking you anything about it.
Right.
Because in a way your content that you have written down needs to be self-sufficient because your admission people won't have you in front of them to ask questions to you.
For sure. I think that was a great answer, Raghav, and a great interview actually.
Thank you.
So thank you so much, Raghav, for taking your time out, sharing your insights and your experiences with us. I'm sure the audience has learned a lot from you today. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, and to all our listeners, do not forget to like, share, subscribe for more content like this, and we'll see you again. Until next time. Thank you.